Welcome to the deep dive. We know you're looking to cut through all the noise out there and find insights that, well, actually make a difference, insights you can really use in your life. And that's what we're aiming for today. We're doing a deep dive into a really powerful message from Pastor Matt Erdos. He's the lead pastor over at Living Water Community Church. And just to be clear, this isn't going to be just a summary. Think of it more as exploring the biblical content together, focusing on how it connects to your life right now. We want to keep it encouraging, engaging, maybe even a little fun. So our mission really is to pull out three key takeaways from Pastor Matt's message, three things you can actually walk away with and, apply. The source is one of his recent Sunday morning services where he was unpacking some pretty deep spiritual stuff. And the big idea, the thing that holds it all together, Pastor Matt put it this way: greatness in God's kingdom doesn't come by being served, but by serving. That's powerful. Yeah, it really is. And when I first heard Pastor Matt talking about developing this servant's heart, I started thinking, okay, what does that look like day to day? He mentioned how it connects us to people who feel unwanted, how it helps grow the church, the capital C church, and even how it can move mountains in someone else's life. It feels really
Uh-huh.
active. What jumped out at you there?
Well, it's that immediate connection he makes to the Bible, right?
Mm.
He brings up Proverbs 17:17 that a brother is born out of adversity.
Mm.
And that makes you think, okay, how does that happen? How are we born out of adversity if we're not actually serving each other? Especially when things get tough. It's like mirroring how Christ serves the church.
Mm.
It's about mutual support.
Absolutely. And he didn't just keep it theoretical. I appreciated how he grounded it right away, like starting the service, praying for Brother Greg, that biker who got hit by a car, and acknowledging the real struggles, the trials and tribulations that can pop up when we try to turn things around in our lives. It's not always smooth sailing.
No, it definitely isn't.
Yeah.
And that's often when that service, that brotherhood really gets tested and solidified. It really brings that proverb to life.
And then there was that little moment with Miss Sharon wiping his glasses, a small thing, but he made a point about helpmates.
Mm.
It kind of highlights those quiet acts of service that make everything work, doesn't it?
It really does. It shows that every contribution matters, even the ones nobody really sees. They're essential.
But the story that really landed for me was him going out with the ARC ministry, actually being boots on the ground,
Yeah.
feeding people, hauling water, going into the woods to these thermal huts.
Mm.
And that realization he shared, the people that live in those tents are people. Wow. And adding, Jesus never looked into the eyes of somebody he didn't love. That kind of shift in perspective, it's huge.
It is. And it shows how getting into those margins, as he calls them, it really changes how you see things. He talked about seeing people who might seem nuts at first glance, but realizing they're dealing with deep stuff, oppression, illness. He even mentioned, encountering things like witches' altars. It's like God opens your eyes to see beyond the surface when you serve like that.
Mm-hmm. Seeing the unseen almost. Which sets up that story about the rich young ruler in Mark 10 perfectly. You hear that story and maybe you immediately think greed, but Pastor Matt offered this deeper servant-focused angle. Remind us, what was the cultural idea of greatness Jesus was pushing back against?
Yeah, that's crucial context. Back then, greatness wasn't just money, it was broader. It included your family, your livestock, sure, but also importantly, how many servants you had. So this young guy, he wasn't just rich, he was powerful, successful by the world standards. He had arrived.
Right, so this guy, full of status, runs up, kneels before Jesus, which is a big deal for someone like him, and asks the question, "Good teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" And Jesus points him to the commandment.
Right. And the man says, "Teacher, all these I have kept since I was a boy."
And this is where Pastor Matt kind of pauses things. He connects it to maybe our modern checklists, right? Going to church, saying a prayer, singing the songs, maybe, as he put it, dropping a 5 in the plate. The challenge becomes, is it just rules on the outside, or has it actually gotten into your heart? Is it in you?
That touches on stewardship, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But Pastor Matt's definition seemed way broader than just money.
Oh, absolutely. And that's so important. He talks about stewarding your time, testimony, talent, treasure, and temple, all of it. And he really emphasizes time as the one thing you just can't get back. He mentioned that Billy Graham quote about the minutes in a day, and even shared that he himself didn't really get stewardship until he was, 37. So it's a process, not just about cash. Okay, so that leads to the core of the encounter. Jesus looks at him, loves him, which is powerful in itself, and then gives the instruction, one thing you lack. Go, sell everything you have, give it to the poor, and come follow me. Mm-hmm. And the guy walks away, sad because he had so much stuff. What was Jesus really asking there? Not necessarily for everyone to be penniless or...
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not a command for universal poverty. It's more like Jesus is asking, okay, what's the thing? What's standing between you and me, between you and the cross? What
Yeah.
attachment, what comfort zone, what thing are you relying on instead of relying on God? The treasures in heaven he talks about, that's eternal life, yeah, but it's also his presence, the impact you have. Like Pastor Matt hoping to meet people from Kenya in heaven, people touched by his ministry he never met here. And he used this Harley as an example, right? Like if God asked for it today, I'd have to be okay with it. It's about that willingness to let go.
So it wasn't just the money or the possessions. What else was wrapped up in that for the ruler?
Well, Pastor Matt's insight here is that the young man kind of wanted it both ways. He wanted to rule in his current state. He was asking how to be first in the kingdom, basically keeping his status, his comforts, keeping his servants. He didn't want to become a servant himself. He wanted the benefits without the transformation.
Ah, okay. That makes a huge difference. Which leads us right into those 3 core truths Pastor Matt laid out. He said they have transformational power for our discipleship. So let's unpack those. The first one, serving shifts you from being inward focused to outward focused. How does that actually work? Pulling us out of our own heads.
Yeah, it's fundamental. And look at Jesus' own guys, James and John, the Thunder brothers. Remember in Mark 10, they come asking Jesus for the seats of honor, right and left hand in glory. I mean, talk about inward focused.
Yeah.
What's in it for me? They were thinking position, status. And Jesus just flips it. He says, look, greatness isn't about your position. It's about people. It's about serving. Pastor Matt used that great analogy. Faith turned inward is like stagnant water. It just sits there. But faith turned outward in service, that's living water. It flows, it moves, it impacts others. And he was really intentional about the distinction between a platform which elevates Jesus' word and a stage which is more about entertainment, glorifying the person. Basically, serving shifts that platform in your heart away from yourself and towards others. That's when faith gets real traction.
That really clarifies things. Okay, second truth. Serving moves us from the center to the margins. Stepping out of the comfort zone. What does that look like?
Well, think about that rich young ruler again. He was living smack dab in the center of his world. He had the wealth, the power, the comfort, probably the servants. Everything revolved around him. But Jesus called him to leave that center, right?
Yeah.
Step into the margins, give it all away, follow him, serve. And he couldn't do it. He walked away. He wanted to stay central. He wanted to keep servants, not become one.
And Pastor Matt's own experience with the ARC ministry, seeing people differently, that really underlines this greatness lives in the margins idea.
Absolutely. Seeing beyond the surface label of nuts to the real pain and struggle underneath. Oppression, illness. You humble yourselves, get down on their level as a servant, and suddenly God shows you things you wouldn't see otherwise. Spiritual realities, human realities. The rich ruler missed out because he clung to the center, wanted servants. Pastor Matt's point is, don't you miss it. Greatness is out there in the margins.
That's a powerful picture. Okay, third and final truth, and it really ties it all together. Serving is the pathway to surrender. As you hear that, maybe you listening can think, what might you need to surrender? Pastor Matt gave his own examples, like the Harley.
And this is where Jesus himself is the ultimate model. John 13, the Last Supper. It says, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, like fully aware of his divine power and authority, still gets up, takes off his outer robe, wraps a towel around his waist, and washes his disciples' feet. He's modeling the cross right there. He's not just talking surrender. He's living service as the path to it. And think about who he washed. All 12. He knew Judas was about to betray him. He knew Peter would deny him. Still served them. Such a stark contrast, isn't it? The rich young ruler couldn't serve because he couldn't surrender his stuff, his status. Jesus shows that serving is how you get to surrender. Pastor Matt used that quote, the one he stole from Facebook, about taking the Christian out of Egypt, but needing discipleship to take Egypt out of the Christian. It's that ongoing process of letting go, of surrendering the old ways. The rich ruler walked away sad. Jesus walked toward the cross. The difference, surrender, achieved through serving.
Wow. Okay, so those 3 truths. Shifting focus outward, moving to the margins, and finding surrender through service.
Yeah.
They really flesh out that big idea, don't they? That greatness, real kingdom greatness, isn't about being served. It's about serving. And these aren't just nice ideas. They feel like real invitations for you listening. So maybe this week, think about it. What's one small act of service you could do? Could be looking someone in the eye, giving a few minutes of your time, and maybe also what possessions, tangible or maybe intangible, like your time, your comfort, your plans, might God be asking you to loosen your grip on, to surrender?
Yeah, maybe just consider this as you go through your week. How could those small everyday acts of serving actually be your pathway your way to experience that deeper surrender, that kingdom greatness the rich young ruler just couldn't grasp, even with all his advantages.
Well, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive today. We really appreciate you spending your time with us. Until next time, keep digging deeper.